Yeah, the warning's already set up, and we're live. Hold on, I just got to fix. No, Eric's cool. Real quick, this is the check-in. I'm your boy Heat Detector. This is what we do. Uh, just getting the main things situated real quick. Ill for Real is in the building tonight.
Yeah, what up? What up? Happy to be here. It's gonna be a pleasure. Good
Yeah,
one.
always.
Should be fun. Should be fun.
And off the gate.
Out the gate, real quick, before we even get started, you know what we have to do. Ill for Real, you want to fill them in real quick?
Yo, let me fill in let me substitute real quick. We are professionals. We are licensed. We are not the pros.
Licensed.
We do not have degrees, nothing like that when it involves mental health, psychology, etc., etc. So, we're just a bunch of homies trying to help each other out, give different perspectives, try to give advice, guidance in a way.
Maybe some resolution.
Yeah, and some solutions.
Maybe some understanding.
Yeah.
And solutions. Good one.
Most definitely.
That's good for the first time. All right. And as I always say, if you dream of cotton candy, rainbows, and bunny rabbits jumping through a field, this is not the podcast for you. This is not the show for you. If you're thin-skinned, this is not the show for you. If you have a hard time taking constructive criticism, this may not be the show for you. If you're a person that gets your feelings hurt really quick, this may not be the show for you. Don't call us on no shit. Don't say no shit. We're here to help. With that being said, you see the disclaimer. Warning, be advised, viewers under 17, please proceed with caution. Do not try this at home. This content contains explicit material. Viewer discretion is advised. Proceed only if you are comfortable with the potentiality of sensitive topics and very explicit language. If you don't like what you hear, just change the damn channel. You don't have to report us. You don't have to say anything to anybody. Just change the channel. It's pretty fucking simple. Pretty damn simple. And with that being said, we have a special guest tonight. I am your boy Heat Detector. We always have my boy Jizzo. He's not here this evening, but we do always, like always, we have Ill for Real in the building, and we have a very special guest tonight. His name is Eric Perry, and I'm going to let Eric Perry talk about what he does because I think it really touches on the topic that we have tonight, which is as parents, are we responsible for our kids' mental health? And with that being said, Eric, take the floor. Tell them what you do.
Hey, I appreciate it. I've been working with troubled teenage youth since 1989 out here with California's youth, some of their most challenging youth. I own and operate a facility out here in California. I've been doing that since 1997. We work with kids that come from probation backgrounds, from social service backgrounds where they were removed from their homes due to abuse or neglect. And I've seen an awful lot of pain over the years. A lot of kids trying to overcome trauma, and we're just all about trying to help kids kind of overcome that and be able to go on so that it doesn't continue to pass from generation to generation.
That's beautiful. That's a beautiful thing. If it just real quick, how important do you think that it is for a parent to be involved in their child's mental health?
Well, it's extremely important, particularly if that child is still living at home,
right,
or still being transitioned back to home, because sometimes children get removed. But typically the goal in most states and most organizations that work with families in that situation, the goal always is to get those kids back home, right?
Right.
And so if that child is still in the home or that child is transitioning home, the participation of the parents is extremely important. And I'm not sure how it is where you guys are. However, out here in California, legally from a very, very young age, and by young age, guys, I'm talking preteen, okay, it is law that child can completely exclude their parents from their mental health treatment.
Wait, whoa! Can you please repeat that again? I don't know if I heard you correctly. Like, what?
No,
now?
you heard me correctly. I mean, at a really young age, in the state of California, kids can say, "Hey, I do not want my mental health information to be shared with anybody except A, B, C, and D." And they can name a teacher, they can name friends, they do not have to name their parents.
Does it? But what isn't that counterproductive? Don't you think?
Uh,
Counterintuitive.
yeah, but yes, it is in many of our eyes. It is. However, oftentimes, if children who are in questionable situations know that what's being shared in the privacy of a therapeutic environment is going to be shared, they won't share.
Really?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
the
So
parents, even
I
even as a
understand the logic behind it.
yeah.
You know, I understand the logic behind it. But I also understand that you know, just because a kid has mental health issues doesn't mean he has bad parenting at home. Mental health issues can come from, you know, we know a million different sources. And, you know, some parents you would really love to see be able to be more involved. But in other cases, trust me, man, doing what I do for a living, working with some of the people we've worked with, you can absolutely see why uh, those children are allowed to pick and choose who gets to be a part of their treatment, and it's very, very respected out here. And there's always a disclaimer though, like you guys
Right.
shared a disclaimer before the show. Their disclaimer is if we feel that there is a threat of harm to yourself as a child, or we feel there is a threat of uh, harm to others, or
Hmm.
any sort of severe abuse, whether it be physical, sexual, or emotional, that's when they have to notify. They are required and mandated to report.
Right. I'm just sitting here thinking, and I'm literally like blown away right now. You could kind of knock me over with a fucking feather right now because it just really doesn't make any sense to me. Like as a therapist, if I'm not a therapist, but my thinking is like if there's a therapist in the room and let's say there's trouble at home, that the trouble stems from the house, not any outside forces. Wouldn't it make sense to have the parents involved regardless to try to get to the root of the problem?
um Over time, I mean, I'm no expert, like you
Right. No,
said
I
prior
mean,
to the
like in your
show.
opinion.
My opinion is if they're going to continue to live in that home, then there has to be a a there has to be opportunities for them to work cohesively as a unit,
Hmm.
so that they can work through the issues that exist with that child.
Right.
But like I said, I'm telling you, I've seen the extreme. You know, I've seen people that had no business even being involved in their child's life anymore, much less in their mental health treatment, because they are in a situation themselves where they have, you know, they're actually causing more damage than they are good.
Well, it was like my understanding. Well, I haven't been to California in a million years, but
Right?
like that, the California was always against separating the child or children from
Mhm.
the family or the mother,
Yep.
regardless of the situation. Because I can remember back in the day, like the mother had to damn near attempt murder on their child before they would actually take them away from their child from their parents. And it seems like now it's like, I mean, well, I don't know what it's like, but that I don't know. I'm still trying to wrap my brain around the child being able to say, I don't want my mom or my dad here, or I don't want that, whatever. Just having the choice like that, it just kind of blows me away a little bit.
Yeah, no, it's a real thing. It's a real thing, boss. I'm telling you. And and we, you know, we are blessed in our situation because, the kids that we work with are typically very much willing to sign releases of information.
Wow. And these are minors that are signing releases and things of that nature?
Yep.
Wow.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. These
Wow.
and
Crazy.
they're authorized representatives, but you know these these kids are they're in charge of their own treatment and who
That
is
just
allowed to be aware
so if a
of those
child is
issues.
if a child is a minor and he can't go buy a pack of cigarettes, he can't go buy alcohol, he can't go rent an apartment, he or she can't go do any of these things, but yet is in charge of their mental health.
100%. Research it. I'm
No, I
telling
mean
you.
I'm saying, like, right, even as I say it out loud. Okay, I get it. Mental health. They're in charge of they're in charge of their own mental health. But I I don't know. It just seems a bit extreme, because if a child doesn't have the real capacity to understand certain things, it would seem that they wouldn't have the capacity to understand who shouldn't be in the room, if that
Yeah.
makes any
No,
sense.
yeah, in many instances, I agree. But like I shared earlier, in other instances, I mean, you would fully understand as to why.
Right. I get that. I
Uh,
mean, I've here in Chicago, we live by a school now, and we've lived by other schools. And when my kids were going to school, when I'd walk to pick them up from school, like I had, I used to be kind of a drill sergeant, you know what I mean, when it came to, I just didn't want to waste any time. And plus, there was always so much going on when the kids were being let out, and the parents were, it was, for lack of better words, a shit show. The kids
mhm.
are screaming, yelling. The parents are, they're in their pajamas picking their kids up from school, yelling at the kids, saying the most outlandish things. Like, I couldn't believe, like, the things I was hearing the parents outside saying to their kids in public. So that alone is like, well, Jesus, what the hell are they saying to them behind closed doors? What are they doing to
Mhm.
them behind closed doors? Because I know when I picked my kids up, from the time I dropped them off, it's strictly business. Get in there, don't lollygag around outside, none of that. But it is Chicago as well. It's pretty dangerous at times. It can be. And
Mhm.
even coming outside, picking them up, it's like, I need you by the gate. I need you, as soon as we lock eyes, you walk to me, we're out of here. I don't want to
Mhm.
come. I shouldn't have to come up here looking for you. I shouldn't have to get you away from your friends. I shouldn't have to do any of that. I'm picking you up. You can go home. You can play. You can do whatever you want once we get out of here. But I don't want this kind of interaction. I never wanted that, because I would just see
Right.
those things, and those things would just worry the hell out of me, and would worry what those kids were doing, because there was a lot of things in these schools that were happening. The teachers too, because the teachers get fed up. They're limited in what they can do and can say, and all of that. So all of that shit used to trouble me. Still does, because even now, driving by the school, when the school's being let out, the parents are outside. There's traffic. People are yelling at each other. Everybody's cursing, and these little kids, they're basically running wild and doing whatever. And it's like, oh my god, I can't. It's just anxiety through the roof. And I don't know, man. I think, because I've always thought about that, in the home. How important it is. I mean, because we can do, like, the greatest job as parents inside the house, but the hardest part about that to me is you letting go. Like, because once they walk outside that door, the only thing that we can hope is that they use the tools that we give them, and the
Mhm.
understanding that we give them inside the home, and use that once they step outside of the house, because it's a cold, cold world out there, and nobody gives a fuck, to be quite frank. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
And
Facts.
they need to
Facts.
be able to discern that. You know what I mean? And I think, like I said, at times I was a drill sergeant, but I felt it necessary, because Like I don't know. I think I needed them to hear. I mean, maybe I was loud too much sometimes or whatever, but I felt it necessary. I deemed it necessary because I in my mind I needed them to be outside and somebody's doing something and they hear me in the back of their head like don't you fucking even think about it. You know what I mean?
Yep.
But even that can be construed as a little too much, especially by nowadays standards. I mean, what is too much? If we're concerned about our child's mental health and their safety, what is too much? What do you think too much is?
That is right now, that's the $1 million question, right?
Right.
That's the $1 million question for parents like us that love our children and that want what's best for them, but also want them to understand that, yeah, the world is a mean and nasty place and it does not care. So, how do we find that balance of, hey, we love you, you're safe, we want you to have a happy childhood, and you find that balance with, hey, there are people out there that wake up every single day trying to find somebody like you to hurt
yes,
or to victimize. That's a great question because I watch and I feel for parents raising children nowadays because in one sentence you want that child to know that they are your world,
right,
and that and that you would die for them, you would do anything for them, you love them that much. But in the next breath, you have to explain to them that not everybody is like you.
right,
right.
Yeah,
And
100%.
And I feel for parents nowadays where it's like, oh, respect your teacher, right? We were all raised that way. Respect your educators, respect your adults. But at the same time, well, there's adults all over the place, in the school systems and also in the, in clerical positions, or I'm sorry, in religious positions, where you still have to understand that, well, if they cross this line or they use these words or they take this direction, those adults can know you're not to trust them.
Right.
And so, I feel for young people nowadays, where, where we want to teach them to respect the adults in their lives, but at the same time, we want them to have caution about the adults in their lives because of all the horror stories that we hear every single day.
Right. What do you think the actual role is for a parent to be mindful of their child's mental health? I think, to be mindful of their mental health. Is maybe
I think
there's parents out there that aren't.
Okay, I think that for those parents to stay educated, because the more you stay educated, the more you're going to learn about maybe even the most basic things like attention deficiency disorder, right? ADD, ADHD. That could be
Eric, do me a favor. Let's start
ahead.
this. Let's pose this question one more time, but this time let's act like everybody's a fucking idiot. Because there are people out there that may watch this and they may say to themselves, well, what does he mean educate myself? I'm educated, or I'm, you know what I mean? There is a mentality out there that doesn't understand that there is information out there, that maybe they do need to gain some knowledge on this said topic, or understanding that if their kid is yelling or screaming or can't be focused on certain things, that there might be some type of issue mentally, or I don't know if I don't want to use any fucked up words or anything, but there might be something going on. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So how do we explain that to somebody that may look at this and say, well, I don't understand what they mean educate myself?
Oh, okay. Yeah, fair enough. Well, I mean, it's hard to get around it, but if your child is exhibiting specific behaviors and typical interventions, your everyday.
Okay, I'm going to play devil's advocate. What do you mean typical behaviors? Because my kid runs around. All the kids run around, Eric. All the kids run around. All the kids make noise. All kids do this shit. What do you mean?
Okay, let's say that.
I mean, think about it. That would be the
um,
sentiment. That would kind of be the sentiment of most, like
right,
the
right.
average, let's say, average urban parent.
Okay, for the average everyday urban parent, or rural parent, really, I mean, just
Mm-hmm.
parent in general. You know, think back to some of the behaviors that maybe you experienced among other children that you were around, and then understand that today there are tools at your disposal, that the schools, in many regards, from a mental health standpoint, are they're still not perfect, but they are way better suited to deal with it than we are nowadays,
Mm-hmm.
right? Or than we were then. I apologize then. And if you are concerned and you feel like there's an issue, then talk to somebody, um, and and allow them, if you feel like your child needs an assessment, testing, things of that nature. Most public education institutions will have some avenue available to you that will let you get your child some of the help that they need. Now,
Right.
is it perfect? No, come on, man. No, it's not. And are you always going to agree with that? No, you're not. But to backpedal, I talked about education, but we I would encourage also to stay as involved as you possibly can. But like I said, if you live in a state like California and your kid has a mental health issue, you may or may not be allowed to participate in correcting that mental health issue. And I'm not even kidding. This is
That
a
is so
real
crazy
thing.
to me. That is so crazy to me because I couldn't even imagine like living there. And let's just say that let's just say that I'm an aware parent. I'm in the moment parent. I'm a parent that is understanding that my child is having issues. I don't know what they stem from. I don't understand what's going on. I'm doing my best as a parent. And I say, well, you know what? Let me see about getting my child some mental health, and let's get down to the nitty gritty. Let's get down to brass tactics. Let's find out what's going on. And then my child says, I don't want them in here. That would fuck me up. That would be like, wait a minute, no. And I like just from a parent standpoint, I can't imagine my 10-year-old. I don't have a 10-year-old, by the way, but if I had a 10-year-old saying, no, I don't want my dad in here. I don't want my dad participating. And that is so counterintuitive to me because, okay, so then you're not going to share any information with me. I don't know what the fucking problem is. I might be the fucking problem. And even if I'm an aware ass parent and I'm the problem, it would seem like, okay, now I need help to figure out what the problem is. And it may be something very simple, maybe something more complicated. But if I'm not involved in that, no matter what happens and the child keeps coming back to the house, I may keep doing this because I'm not aware that I'm even doing it.
Yep. You're not even aware that you're triggering that issue with your child. And the only way that you can be aware is if you're involved. Another avenue, okay, let's say, because most of the young people that I work with, of course, are receiving their mental health services through government entities, right? However, you as a parent, if you were to hire independently a therapist that is to help you navigate this, understand that when you're paying the bill and the county's not paying the bill, you can very easily say, you know what, I don't agree with the approach that you're taking and the fact that you don't want us to know anything. You're done. You're fired. Essentially, you're fired.
But if the state if the state's paying, the state says, nah, well,
it's different then. I mean, you can request another mental health worker, but when you're talking about dealing with the state, and if the state is flipping the bill, out here it's, Medi-Cal, Medicaid, whatever. I don't know what you guys have in Illinois, but if the state's paying it, you're in an area like yours, you're probably not going to have a problem finding another therapist. You understand?
They don't. Mental health is not given in Chicago. It's not given the there's they just shut down last year. They shut down so many facilities that were ran by the state. That was like, I think in the city there was somewhere in the 20s of facilities that they had, but I believe they were all adult facilities, if I'm not mistaken. But either way, it's not something that like you can just hey, you know what? I'm going to take my kids over here around the corner because there's a mental health facility. There's nothing like that. You have to go through and jump through so many hoops. You know what I'm saying? And I don't think, and I could be wrong, but it just feels like that there's in the city here not enough emphasis or focus on mental health. They talk a lot, but they don't do shit. It feels like,
Amen.
and it looks like it.
Amen. No, I agree. I mean, like I mentioned earlier, I've been with the same agency now for 27 years. And I have what most would consider to be good insurance and good employee services. But my EAP, my employee assistance program, for me,
Right.
will pay for 3 therapy sessions per calendar year. 3.
That's it?
That's it. So only, and my insurance doesn't cover it, but my EAP will, right? My employee assistance program will cover it. But come on, man, 3 sessions a year. If I'm having a legitimate crisis,
Right.
okay, and like I said, I'm gainfully employed. If I'm having a legitimate crisis, I have to pay $100 an hour or more
That is crazy.
to supplement those 3 sessions that I get paid for. And most people that are going through severe trauma and need significant therapy, it's once or twice a week. And
Right.
most people can't afford that.
No,
right?
I would say mass majority of the population can't afford that. And so
Yeah,
it becomes
I can afford it, and
Yeah.
I'm gainfully employed. I have a good job, but
right.
therapy once a week is outside of my budget when you're talking $100 an hour, and my employee assistance program only covers 3 per year.
Now let's think about that for a second. Now, would that involve? Let's say you had a minor child. Does that involve? That would be the same for your child?
Yep, and the same with my insurance. The mental health services are basically non-existent with that insurance company. And when you're talking an employee assistance program, you're talking a very limited number of sessions with or for your child that you insure.
Well, that would seem. Yeah. Well, it just makes it more important that a parent is. I had no idea about that in California, but now that makes me really think about Illinois, and I really want to look into that because it's 3 times a year, like, and then God, I'm just at a loss of words right now. It just really makes it like more difficult and almost impossible, like if you think about it, for a parent to even try to be on top of their kids' mental health, let alone be aware of it. Like you know what I mean? Some parents just aren't aware, or they don't pay that much attention, or whatever you want to call it. But if there's no help, I mean, then what the fuck do you do?
Mm-hmm.
What the fuck do you do before things kind of come to a boiling point? Which, you know, in all of life and us being humans and whatever, like if things go unattended, and go what's the word I'm looking for? Anyways, unattended. At some point, the pot's going to boil
Untreated.
over. Untreated. There you go.
Yep.
I apologize.
That's okay.
If they go untreated, it stands to reason that at some point that pot is going to explode.
Yep.
And I speak of that from a stamp from my own experience of quitting drinking and not realizing that I was stuffing all of this behavior, all of these thoughts, all of these things by drinking. And once I quit drinking, I was cool for a minute. I was like, "Oh yeah, this is amazing! Wow, no
great,
alcohol,
yeah, right.
Yeah.
Feel great."
Then all of a sudden, it's like I wake up and I'm kind of like, "That's weird. I felt like this before, but then it's like, yeah, but then I'm like, oh shit, that's when I usually grab the bottle and start drinking. And then I basically kind of forgot everything that was happening. But now it's like it's brewing. I'm like, oh, okay, I'm cool. No, it's brewing more and more. And I'm like, wait a minute, what the fuck? Then anxiety kicks in, and all this other shit going on, and my mind is going crazy. It's racing. I'm having thoughts. I'm going whatever. I had a fucking meltdown, a full-on crisis center, the whole shit. And
Wow.
it was weird because like the thoughts of like suicide and the thoughts of all of these things just kept coming in my head, and they started to be really uncontrollable. I went from thinking about suicide and thinking, you know what, it's probably best if I check the fuck out. Then my brain would immediately say, what are you, nuts? Then that thought became stronger and stronger and stronger. And before I knew it, I was sitting there going, yeah, that is the right fucking thing to do. What the fuck? Yeah, who cares? Like, you know? And I was scrambling trying to figure out, why in the hell am I thinking like this? And the more I would try to stop myself from thinking that, the more it just kept everything. I mean, from things from my childhood, basically, because once I started going to therapy and everything and started really looking at what the problem was, and these are a lot of things from my childhood, a lot of childhood trauma, a lot of shit, a lot of violence, a lot of negativity, a lot of, you name it. And I had started drinking when I was 13. So at 13, I learned to drink to black all the way out, to drink to get extremely drunk. And I did that from 13 all the way up in my adult years. You know, I don't know how functioning I was. You know, I was able to do things, accomplish things and everything, but I would always self-destruct. And that just leads me back to the kids, to say that as an adult, knowing now what all of these things were triggering from my childhood, all the different things, because I was put in foster care. And this was a long time ago, where foster care, you may as well just throw the kids in fucking the pits of hell. You know, I'm 57, so that was a long time ago, 70s, and that was, you know, and my mother almost lost us to the state, and it was a living hell for that almost 2 years we were in foster care, my brother and I. And there was a lot of shit that happened there. There was shit that happened before that, before we even went into foster care. There were things after the fact, you know, because we went into foster care very young. I think I may have been 9, I believe, 9, 8. It could have been 7. I don't even really remember. And I blocked that shit out. Like, but even after we got out of foster care, things it just didn't seem that they ever got any better in my mind. As an adult, looking back at it now, and looking back at how all of those things triggered a lot of my behaviors and triggered a lot of shit that I did as an adult, which leads us back to the question again: how important, or how responsible are we as parents for our kids' mental health? And I think I think we're extremely responsible for their mental health. But how do we go about knowing it, fixing it, doing something about it? Because I don't think my mother had the fucking tools to do anything. I know she didn't.
Right.
And she, because of the things that she went through that I found out later on in life, later on before she passed away, all these things that happened to her, and I was like, holy fuck. You know what I mean? It
all made sense, right?
Yeah.
It all started to make sense, right?
Yeah. She was only doing what she knew.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which was extreme violence and fucking a bunch of other shit.
Yeah.
But
oh no, and there's some pretty good, there's amazing literature out there on it. But I remember at one point in my facility, I started making it mandatory that the staff in my facility watch a movie, and the movie was called Antoine Fisher.
Okay.
And I don't know if you've ever seen the movie, but it's about a young man that had basically been raised within the foster care system and had dealt with trauma throughout his entire life. But then he joined the Navy, and he began experiencing behavior episodes. He would fight, He was always in trouble, always in the brig. But the Navy provided an incredible therapist that helped him understand everything that he had gone through
Right.
and why he was behaving the way that he was. And he went on to write the book, and the book became a movie. And there's a lot of those out there, but in this one, I mean, you're talking Denzel Washington was the therapist, so pretty significant actor, and he did an incredible job in that role. But I mean, I know a lot of people consider mental health a buzzword right now. It's not a buzzword. We are in crisis. Our children are 100% in crisis. I believe, based on my understanding of your upbringing, you grew up in a urban area. For me, I grew up in a rural area.
Not in my urban, yes, but my real formidable years were there was a lot of shit going on. There was my brother's dad was a pimp, like a for real, like a real pimp, and my mom was what they call the bottom bitch. So she took care of all the bills. She took care of the kids, which was me, my brother, and my sister, and we were basically like arm candy for him when he's out doing his thing and doing whatever. And I remember like waking up in the middle of the night. I was, this was like from probably 1 to like 5 or 6, I believe, and basically orgies in the living room. But I was a kid, so I was like, why is everybody fighting naked? You know what I mean? Everybody not naked, because I didn't know. I was just like, they don't have any clothes on and they're fighting. In my mind, they were fighting. Right. I didn't know what was going on. I didn't know all of these things that were going on. And this was in the 70s. Not that gives them any excuse, but 70s were crazy. But but
70s were crazy.
Yeah, but I mean, there was and besides that, there was extreme amount of violence in the home that was perpetrated by my brother's dad. Rest his soul, Ronnie. Because he not only was he a pimp, but he was extremely verbally abusive and physically abusive, not to us kids, but to my mother. And he didn't give a shit who was around whenever he did whatever he did. And I remember lots of nights of us being woke up at 3 or 4 in the morning, 2 in the morning, and my mom is just grabbing us and trying to escape out of the house, and then going somewhere even to like my mom's aunt's house or whatever. And this guy would come in and just kick the door in and pistol whip everybody in the fucking house and take my mom and us and we'd go right back in there. And it wasn't until she actually escaped out of that, and she escaped out of it, because that's exactly what it was. Because my mom had me when she was 16, so she was even a fucking minor and he was an adult. And when we finally got out of there, I vaguely remember that night, but we got out of there and she never turned back and looked again. But from that, we lived a good life, though. Don't get me wrong. We had everything, the home, the cars, the clothes. We had every fucking thing, but there was all this other shit going on. But once that we were out of that situation, the trauma went from all of that violence to more violence, extreme violence, because my mother started doing heroin and became a raging alcoholic. And so there was probably 10 to 20 times more violence and more shit going on, because now we don't even have that, if you would even call it, protection from him. Or sanctity
a male
of that
figure,
household,
if you want to call him that.
Yeah. If there was any sanctity in that household, it was still the roof over our head. It was still 3 meals a day and everything else, and we went from that to absolutely nothing, and my mom losing her mind. She was a minor herself, and here she is lugging around 3 kids and not knowing what to do, coming from this verbally abusive, physically abusive, but her parents were verbally and physically abusive to her. And she only did, she told me something. If I'm talking too much, just let me know. She told me something before she passed away that just fucked me up. That because my mother's Native American and Hispanic, right? My father is Puerto Rican, and so Mexicans people don't like Puerto Rican people, especially back then, because in their minds it may as well be black. So, when my mother got pregnant, and because she was dating these men, and they were men, but I don't even know if they gave a fuck back then, but they gave her electroshock therapy, thinking that this is going to stop her from dating people of color.
Really,
yeah.
So that was still going on in her upbringing.
Mm-hmm. That's like one step above a lobotomy. Like, are you fucking kidding me? I was like, I looked at my mother and I was like, holy shit. Well, it makes
so they thought that electric shock therapy would influence her preference of men.
It would somehow fuck something up in her brain or something. There was something wrong with her brain that was making her do that. And they put her and my aunt into a girls' home for not wayward girls. What did they call them? What did my aunt say it was? It was like
incorrigible.
Incorrigible. Yeah, incorrigible. Yeah, like just like these girls right here. They're fucking whores, and they don't know what the fuck they're doing. And we're gonna send them here, and they're gonna set them straight. They did shit like that back then. So I can, like, if we fast forward and get off, I don't mean to talk too much, but just to give some insight, you know. And I can't even imagine kids nowadays, because let's be really clear, the amount of information that's out there at their fingertips, and they become desensitized on things way too early.
Mm-hmm.
And then you put that, and then there's things going on in the home. There's the outside forces. There's fucking the internet. There's all this plethora of shit. And then you have a parent that maybe just, I don't know what to do. What do I do, Eric? What do I do, Eric? Mr. Perry? What do I do?
Yeah, you kind of started to talk about it. I assume when you were young, you walked to and from school, right? I know I did.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I walked. We were bused, but there were times when we walked to and from school.
Yeah,
and we had that break. Let's say that we were being bullied, picked on, made fun of, or we were at an awkward point in our lives. We could hop on a bus or start walking and leave all of that shit behind. Right? All that shit, and get home to what we knew as home. And if we didn't want to, we didn't have to think about our peers at all.
Right.
That were fucking with us, right? That were messing with us, or that were making fun of us. We didn't have to think about them. Man, now these poor kids, man, they never get a break from what's going on with who. The nonsense of social media, because come on, we all know that everybody fronts on social media. I mean, I front a little bit on social media, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so these kids are constantly looking at the lives of other people, saying, "Well, I don't stack up.
Right.
I don't add up. I'm not worthy." Right. And so, when you know these things and you have to deal with them, day in and day out, you think back to when we were young, and we used to get breaks from that, man.
Yeah.
I mean, we'd walk down, where I grew up, we'd walk down to the canal, we'd catch crawdads.
Yeah.
We'd catch fish, or we go to our little league baseball game, or our youth football game, or youth basketball game, and we had a break. And our break, when we left school for the weekend, we were gone for the weekend.
Gone.
Oddly enough, poor kids.
Check this out. Oddly enough, so once we left the grip of Ronnie, we went first off, like, immediately to we lived on reservations for a long time. And so then we lived in Marysville, Yuba City, for a while.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's right down the road. That's right down the road from us, just a couple hours.
And Oroville. At I forget the name of the reservations up there, but yeah, in the daytime, especially on the weekends or summer, my mom was like, "Get the fuck out of the house!" Like as soon as as soon as cartoons were over, or like 8 o'clock, get the fuck out of here, you know.
Yep.
And then, but bring your ass back before it gets dark. So we
Right.
would be everywhere. Me and my brother, like we had this like raft, this blow up raft, and I forget the name of the river, but we would walk miles from one end, and then just get in that raft and just raft all the way back to where we back to where where the house was, and that would take felt like days walking. But
that'd be the Feather River or the Yuba River.
The Ute River.
Yep.
River.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because my mom's my grandmother, or is it my great grandmother is Ute. They're Ute Indian. No, I don't know, but it's Ute. Yeah, and it was the Ute River and the Feather River. We were in that shit all the time.
Okay. Yeah.
But yeah, we were outside, but inside once it got dark. And even then, she would let us sometimes, like, we lived in these really weird apartment buildings, and they had like grass in the back, but it was open area, and we lived right by the freeway. And she would let us build tents outside and just leave us out there like all fucking night long, you know. And like we would camp, like we were camping. And I remember, this is wild. So there used to be like a really big, I don't know if you call it a levee. Not a levee. Was it a levee? But the freeway's right there.
Right.
And this is the 70s, so like cars are fucking probably doing like 90 miles an hour. It was like fucking speed limit was like 75 or 80 or something. But we'd walk up there with cardboard boxes and on the grass, you know, and it was dirt and grass. But, you know, I mean, cars are just like whizzing by us when we get to the top, like just crazy. And then here we are, these little kids, and we're just jumping on the cardboard, sliding down the hill. But that shit is, I don't know why I thought about that right now, but.
No, it's okay, man.
Dangerous as hell, though. I know that. We live very dangerous lives.
No, it was dangerous, but we had shit like that. And now a kid would take that same ride, maybe down that hill on a cardboard box. But when they get to the bottom, they're going to be checking their phone.
Right. Or checking their phone while they're on that damn box.
Yeah. As they're skidding down the hill, they're going to be on their phone. And,
or not even outside. Or if they're even outside, they're sitting right by the door or somewhere close by on their phone.
Right.
And I just had a crazy thought, because I was talking to somebody the other day about children's mental health, and they said something about kids and depression nowadays. And I said, you know what depression was back in the day? Depression was, oh, you're bored? Get the fuck out of the house and go do something.
Go make friends.
Go make friends. Like, if you said, even saying the word depressed, like, what the fuck are you talking? Go outside and play. You're not depressed. Oh, you're bored? There's some dishes in there. Go clean. You know, oh, you're bored? Go get the vacuum. Go, you know what I mean? And didn't want to do that shit. So he immediately, let me get out of this house. You know what I mean? Because there was no, even if you were sitting around crying or whatever, it's like, what are you doing? Get your ass up and get outside and go play. Right. So even if a child back then was depressed or anything, to deal with that was to be yelled at and say, go outside and go fucking play and shut up, you know?
Well, and I mean, look, I'm no mental health expert. You don't see any degrees on the wall.
You see, there's nothing.
Yeah, there's no degrees on the wall. But let's think about sunlight, vitamin D.
Right.
Being outside, exercise,
right?
You know, right? Just to get to your friend's house back then, you had to walk, and it was safe enough to walk.
Right.
You didn't. Yeah, there were bad people around back then, but now, I mean, most parents are scared to let their children out of sight, and based on what we know about society, who can blame them?
Right.
Who can blame them? You and I, we probably walked everywhere. I know I did.
Everywhere.
Or I got on a bike and I pedaled. I went everywhere.
Roller skates, skateboard, whatever.
Yeah, but we were outside all of the time, and I feel like we were being saturated with vitamin D, which it's clinically proven that it has vitamin D or a lack thereof has a profound effect on mental health and depression.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and I think that nowadays I have kids that come into my facility that literally cannot function without electronics.
Right.
If you say, um, hey, we're going to feed you all these great meals, we're going to make sure you have all the clothing you need, we're going to support your education, we're going to tell you when you're doing great, we're going to help you when you're struggling, you're going to be safe, we're going to protect you, we're going to look out for you, we're going to love you, but you don't get to have your cell phone 24 hours a day. I have had kids get up and leave my facility just on that because they don't get to have their cell phone 24 hours a day. I've interviewed kids and said, hey, we collect cell phones at 8 o'clock every night and we hand them out at 8 o'clock in the morning. Well, I'm sorry, Mr. Perry, I have no interest in being in your program. Basically, fuck off. I want
And,
nothing
and
to
a
do with it.
minor has the right to say that.
Uh, to some extent, it depends. I mean, kids that are on probation, they don't have quite as much say so, but a lot of social placements, you know, now they'll just basically say, I want nothing to do with your program because you won't let me on my cell phone all the time,
That's
24/7.
crazy. Oh
Yeah.
man. So what does Eric Perry say to a parent that just comes there, finds out about your facility? Is that a
Um,
is that
go
a?
ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Let's say a parent comes to Eric Perry's facility and they're just looking for help, right? They're at their wits end with their kids or kid. What do you say to them?
It, oh man, the resources are limited.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to tell them that. The cost to be in a placement like mine is astronomical. And I don't set the cost. You
Right.
understand? I don't set the rate. The state sets the rate. Um, but I tell them that well, I try to be empathetic first and
Right.
foremost. If this is a parent that's involved, um, doing everything they can to support and love their child, I try to show empathy because, quite frankly, that could be any of us.
Mm-hmm.
I, I have a relative in my life. Uh, she raised her daughter as incredibly supportive, loving, um, amazing environment as she possibly could have. But her daughter, right now at 33, 34 years old, is 1,500 miles away from her location. And she's in Southern California and she is completely addicted to fentanyl and
Jesus
she's living
Christ.
on the streets. And this woman is raising her grandchildren. Okay. And it's kind of like the crack epidemic, right?
Right.
Of the 80s, where these parents became so wrapped around their addiction that grandparents kept having to step in. And I met some of the most amazing people I've ever met working with kids in the early 90s during the crack epidemic in the inner cities. But it seemed like they were all grandparents.
Hmm.
It seemed like they were all grandparents. Uh, because if mom got hooked or dad was selling, uh, you know, everything else got put aside. And the
Right.
child absolutely was one of those things that got put aside. And I know it sounds like, I'm kind of on a tangent right now, but it's like I told her because she's one of the most incredible people I've ever met. Just an
Mm-hmm.
amazing, God fearing woman that prays every single day. And it's like, you know what? You didn't do anything wrong.
Right.
You loved her. We live in a terrible world where the other side uses everything and every tool at its disposal to destroy lives and to break hearts. Um, but she's a grandparent And if she wasn't there in those children's lives, those children would be a mess. They're lost. But they're as happy and well adjusted as they can be. And she's as exhausted as she could humanly be. And she is at an age where she should be in the twilight, enjoying her life,
Mm-hmm.
reaping the benefits of her hard work, because she's always worked hard and been well paid, as her husband has. But here they are. They're raising their kids. And anytime we talk about mental health nowadays, it's almost synonymous with some sort of addiction. You talked about alcohol and how
Mm-hmm.
you started at 13. Well, nowadays we're talking about things like methamphetamine, fentanyl,
Fentanyl,
right? Um,
pills,
and
fucking
pills.
opioids.
Yeah, opioids. I mean, up close and personal, my life has been affected by people that were addicted to opioids, and you watch these people, and I talk about crack epidemic, methamphetamine, opioids, fentanyl, families that had white picket fences that had really begun to thrive generationally.
Mm-hmm.
And it only took one parent to get addicted, and it destroyed that entire family line. And it takes sometimes multiple generations to get that family lineage put back on track. Um, and I think that so much of what, I mean, I could go on for hours with
Right.
what we're dealing with in our nation with addiction. Um, Everybody wants to talk about mental health. I want to talk about mental health. It's near and dear to my heart because of the kids I work with. But I also want to talk about addiction and where we are, because
They kind of work hand in hand, I think.
don't they? I mean,
Yeah.
right? I mean, you think about a lot of the trauma that you have seen personally growing up in your life and the mental
That
health
led.
issues that occurred.
I'm sure that led me to drink at 13. I'm
Well,
sure of it.
yeah,
I know it is.
yeah. There was substance abuse in there somewhere almost every single time. Almost every time. Not every time, but almost every time.
Yeah.
Especially those of us that work with kids that have been removed from their homes. I mean, I get a lot of small county kids, rural county kids, and usually it's meth.
Mm.
But when I first got into this business, I was working mostly with kids from Oakland, San Francisco,
Right.
Stockton,
Very
Sacramento.
familiar with Stockton. Lived there too.
Yeah. Oh boy, let me
And
tell
Oakland.
you,
Yeah. Stockton is a
yeah,
shithole.
it's
Yeah.
a tough place to raise children. Let me tell you, man. And from my experience, it's even a more gut wrenching place to send children home to.
Gee,
Uh,
you're preaching to the choir right now. Especially during the pimp years, were in Oakland and Stockton.
mhm.
So I'm very, and then I spent time as a teenager in Stockton and in New York as well. So I was going back and forth. But yeah, I'm very familiar with Stockton.
Yeah, and I don't, of course, I would never use names, but I'll give you an example. We worked with a couple of the most dynamic and gifted young African American uh, teenagers, young men that you
Mhm.
could ever meet. And one of them, well, both of them were on probation. They were from the Stockton area. And I remember when one of them had completed my program, but he did not want to go back to Stockton.
Mm-hmm.
And we were told essentially by his uh, placement worker, I won't name a department, but
Right.
his placement worker, that we were to drop him off at his mother's house on a specific date. So we drove him down there, and it's supposed to be a happy time, right? He completed our program.
He's going
We're
home.
supposed to be happy.
Yeah.
He was crying, and he told us, if you leave me here, I will not live to see 25 years old.
Mm.
He said, I don't want to come back here. But he had completed our program.
Was the
The
shit he
home
could do.
had been inspected. The parent had done everything that she was supposed to do to get her child back. And it was a wrap. We didn't have a choice. Like, we loved on him. We hugged him. We told him, hey, man, we wish you the best. You can do this. When you turn 18, if you want to come back to our area, come back. And we stayed in contact with him over a few years, because I believe he got out of our program at about 16. But at 19 years old, well, my phone rang, and he had been shot and killed outside of a convenience store in Stockton, California. And the worst thing about it was over a conflict that he had nothing to do with. A friend of his had gotten into an argument with somebody inside the convenience store, and it spilled over outside. I'm told, I never saw the video, but I'm told that he was trying to leave, but his friend, I mean, come on, we all have friends,
Yeah.
right? His friend was in a tough spot, looked like he was cornered. He came walking over non-threateningly, and somebody else arrived on video, shot him 9 times and killed him. And around a similar time, we had another young man that flourished in our placement, graduated high school in record time. He was incredibly intelligent, and I would have conversations with his mother and his grandmother saying, look, if he goes back to Stockton, he doesn't have a chance.
Right.
And they was, but I mean, they're trapped too, right? They can't just pack up and move. Not, they're economically challenged like the rest of the world. You can't just drop everything and relocate. He was dying to get back to Stockton, but he currently is looking at 25 to life because he shot somebody else. And this was a young man. Hey, we got him a job in fast food, and it wasn't 3 months. He was running the entire store. And you're talking 16, 17 years old. He understood business. He understood people. This was such a powerfully gifted and amazing young man, but his environment forced him to have to carry a firearm. And he would tell me all the time, hey, when I go back to Stockton, I'm going to have a gun. I'm always going to have a gun, right? Because of everything that he had seen.
Right.
And sure enough, somebody ran up on his car. He thought the person was trying to carjack him, whatever the story is, but he shot the person. And now he's off to prison. Another young man lost to the penal system, right? But when it comes to Stockton, I have a million stories.
I bet. I got a million of them too. Trust and believe.
I bet.
I want to thank you for being on the show tonight. We're going to cut this real quick, but this is the point at the end of the show where we get last words and or last thoughts about the show tonight. Ill for real, you're up, sir. And then after Ill for real, be you, and I'll give the last one, and then we'll call it one.
All right.
Damn. I mean, last thoughts would probably be they needed to throw some more funds towards helping people get their minds right and understanding why their minds are working a certain way.
Mm-hmm.
For sure. But for everybody that's kind of self-aware, that just keep breathing, keep trying to keep doing better. It starts with you, and it's not overnight neither. So even though it gets frustrating sometimes, even though you get impatient at it sometimes, you beat yourself up over it, it's cool. It's just all part of the process. Yeah.
All right. Can live with that.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful,
Can live
man.
with that.
And I would agree 100%. We got to throw more funding towards helping people and their current mental health states. And if we can figure out that part, then our world, our country, our states, everywhere we live is going to be a better place if we can just help people understand how to cope. And just for those of you that may or may not be, that may be listening or might hear this later, just know that you're not alone, man. Pretty much everything that you are going through right now, someone else is going through. Never forget that. Find a group, do your homework, find somebody to talk to. There are there aren't a lot of them, but there are free services out there, and there's a whole lot of support groups. Find them and lean on them, and know that you are loved, and that there's a lot of us out there that are rooting for you and want you to be okay.
Beautifully put, very eloquently put, sir. And I'm going to start my last thoughts right now by thanking Ill for Real. Thank you all, as always. I love you, brother. Love this young man. Thank you, Eric. Mr. Perry, thank you so much for being on the show. It's been enlightening, I'm going to tell you. There's some shit that I heard. I still am wrapping my brain around it. But thank you so much for being on the show. I hope that we can continue this dialogue. I hope that that you become a regular on the show. That would be nice to give insight from your perspective and from the type of work that you do. I think it would be a beautiful thing. I want to remind everybody of something. We do this show because somebody has to hear this. And sometimes these words are harsh. Sometimes these words are hard to believe, incomprehensible at times. But it's important that they're said. It's important that there is dialogue about it, because even as we had dialogue tonight and talked about these things, there's things now that I'm thinking about that after the show are going to affect how I proceed on the next show and what I do on the show after that, and making sure that we have more information. Something that I need to work more on is making sure that we have information presented to people that don't know where to go or don't know what to do. And as a parent myself, I know it's difficult to be aware of what's going on with your child, to be aware of the mental issues or problems that may be happening or could be stemming from something that you're triggering that you don't realize you're triggering. But there is help. There is help out there. You just have to reach out. You have to do your due diligence, man. Our children are extremely important. Their mental health is probably more important than anything right now. But we also have other pressing issues every day with work and stresses from work and stresses from everyday life and everything. But it's important that we look at our children and we take care of our children and we pay attention. Do your best. And if you can't, reach out to someone. We say this on the show, and that's why we call it the check-in. Just check in with somebody, because even as parents, we need somebody to talk to as well. Maybe somebody can enlighten us on something that we're doing. So check in with somebody. Call your favorite uncle. Call your favorite auntie. Call your best friend. Call somebody if you're going through it. Matter of fact, tell your children if they have somebody that they feel comfortable talking to. If they have a troubling day, tell them to go talk to your friend. I'm here for you, but if you don't feel comfortable talking to me, go talk to your friend. Say something, say something to somebody, because it might be something that they're not comfortable telling us as parents, that they may tell their friend, and their friend may say something to somebody, and then it gets back to us and like, holy shit, I didn't know that was happening. You know what I mean? And then we can get the help or call the police or whatever it may be. God forbid. But reach out. Find help. Find people like Mr. Perry here that may be able to lead you in the direction that you need to be in. May help you figure some things out. I don't know. We're just guys. We're just guys talking about things that we feel like are important. Our kids are always important. Love everybody. Love yourself, and know this. I say this all the time on every show. You show me the man that has the perfect life or the woman that has the perfect life, and they're a fucking liar. Mm-hmm. They are a fucking liar. But what you can do every day before your foot touches the floor, and this is what I do. I practice this every day, no matter how bad that day was before. I'm going to be mindful of this day, and I'm going to make this day better than yesterday. Make that a habit. Mm-hmm. Make that your purpose. And with that being said, thank you so much, Mr. Perry, for being on the show.
Thanks for having me, guys.
This has been the check-in. You know, we'll be here every Sunday at 8:30, like clockwork. I'm your boy Heat. Y'all have a good night. Everybody stay safe. Peace.
Thanks, guys.